Hey, I'm back again working on 62 Chevy. Um, it's another wonderful day in the middle of winter out here in Wyoming. It's like 45 plus, almost 50 degrees. They're threatening a little bit of rain, but the beauty of it right now is there's almost no wind. So I may get sprinkled on. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to take a shot at this. When I was here the last time, I was dealing with the master cylinder. I was trying to see if it had any brakes, and the brake pedal was stuck, and then it went down and seemed to have nothing. So today I opened it up to find out that the reservoir is empty, which may be a problem because it may mean that it's been leaking brake fluid out down through one of the wheel cylinders. I did buy a replacement master cylinder, figuring that if the piston was stuck, it was probably shot. The challenge here is I'm all by myself, and normally to bleed, you need to push the pedal down while the bleeder's open, and then come out here and close the bleeder and release the pedal. And sometimes you can be tricky with that, with find a stick or a board the right size that'll hold the pedal down for you while you run out here and close the bleeder, because I don't have my little do-it-yourself one-man bleeder kit with me. First off, I put a little bit of PV Blaster on those fittings. I really hate to do that because you don't want to contaminate brake fluid with oil, but we're going to have to try it. I just want to see if I can even get the fittings to break loose. Well, that one wasn't too bad. That's amazing. Okay, let's try the bleeder. Yeah, that's not bad either. Well, that's amazing. So I'm going to try to swap it out. Now, normally, I would sort of expect that the push rod would be attached to the master cylinder, that I have to disconnect it under the dash. I've got a motor's manual that only goes up to 1960, and it's not clear. And this is a 62. So I'm going to start by disconnecting the line and trying to unbolt it from the dash and see what I've got. If I need to go underneath and disconnect it, I will. I'm just amazed that it broke loose so easily. I brought along my backup tool, which I've got a video that shows this one, but this is the 7LW. It's an old vice grips that I, for years, didn't know what it was for, but it's for clamping on nuts where your other tool is starting to back off, or round the corners. And they even spring back out of the way. Look at that. Okay, now can I get get a socket on it? There it goes. There it goes. So they're getting tight. Snap that back on there. Well, that worked. Well, there's a push rod for the master cylinder. And it was just, it was stuck in there a little bit, but not bad. For looking under the dash, it looked like it might have an adjustment on it. But typically, things ought to be a fixed length. And the boot on the end of the master cylinder doesn't look too good either. Kind of a mess, but we'll save that one, and I'm going to go in the basement and get the other one prepped to install. Alright, so I have it set up here. I have it set up in the vise. Got it opened up. And there are two ports in the bottom of these master cylinders. One's like a vent, and then there's one there that's the compensating port that you fill through the compensating port, and then when you push the piston down, it closes off the port and builds pressure and pushes fluid out. And if you don't bench bleed these, you'll never get the air out. It'll take you forever. And then you'll push that air down into the system. So I have a brand new fresh bottle of .3 fluid, and we're going to fill that up. You got to be careful with brake fluid because it'll take the paint off of things and make a full mess of stuff. And when you push the piston, sometimes it'll squirt back up as it's closing things off. And then for a push rod, I just got a Phillips screwdriver. You just need something that's going to go through the boot here and go down into the piston and work it. Then the company supplied a couple of these plugs, and for this one you only need one plug because it's only got one port. And it actually has two sets of threads on it, so it'll thread in to two different sized ports. At first I thought they had given me one that was too small to work, but if you keep going on in, this one will pick up the second set of threads. Now you sort of want to do is try to just let it sit for a minute and see if it'll sit long enough to get fluid to come out the port. You can kind of see it's got bubbles coming up through the vent. And I don't want this to spray all over, but I've got a plastic container underneath there. It looks like it's slowly filling. I can see that the level in the reservoir is going down. I'm going to try to stroke it a little bit. You can see the air coming out. You stroke it part way. And you can use the plug, and at some point I will, but for now you can just use your finger to cover over it and keep it from drawing air back in the port there. Nice and easy. You can see the air going there. See, because what happens is, when the air is coming out, when you see it bubbling there, that piston isn't past the hole yet. And there, now it is. And we'll release it with holding it over the end. Oop, there it goes. Starting to get some. That's good. Right now I'm just doing some short strokes to try to work that air out. And you don't want to let the reservoir go empty at this point. Just a number of short strokes here to get things to fill. Stroke one time down to the bottom here. That looks pretty darn good. Okay, it's all the way back. put just a little bit more in the reservoir here. I am getting it down there a ways. There we go. And I'm going to stroke it one more time and just make sure that we don't get... See, I still got air coming up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stroke it a little bit while it's bleeding. Just go ahead and put the plug in it. And then I'm going to just keep doing this until I'm sure I got all the air out. Just like 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch strokes until I'm confident. Looks pretty darn good now. And all the air has worked itself out. Cool. Well, that's the deal. And then I kind of wish I had my plug down here, or a wrench to tighten that plug a little bit. But it only has to stay until I get upstairs. Just put a little bit more in there, probably about 1/4 inch from the top. And I got a brand new container. You just want to make sure that when you're done, you seal it up quickly and real tightly, because it'll pull water out of the air. And you don't want to pull water out of the air. So then we can stick this back on, point the cover toward the bail wire here, like so. Now we should be good to go. Go plug it in up into the car. Alright, well, a little extra fun here because they said 30% chance of rain, and we just got our 30% in the last few minutes here, so it's a little damp, but I should still be able to get her back together here. So we'll get the push rod fed back through the grommet. Alright, there we go. Now get the nuts and washers back on it. It's kind of interesting that they've got a wiring harness that goes right in front of that. The one here on the passenger side of the dash. And if I was leaving this port open for more than just a few minutes, it took me to bench bleed the new one, I would have put some kind of tape covering over it to protect it. All right, well, let's see if I can get the line back together. Pop this one out. This is another one where you really kind of want to finger start things if you can. I got a partial turn. I don't know, let me see here. Yeah, I think it's in there. Personally, I would have liked to have gone further, but I could feel it pick up the thread, so hey, we're good. Alright. Now there's something that I like to do when I do these. I know eventually I have to bleed this out to the wheels. But I'm going to leave this a little bit loose. Put a bucket under here and stroke the pedal one time just to blow out any air that's in this, in the end of this fitting, just to get a little bit better, make the bleed easier later on. All right, I got a bucket set underneath here. Now I'm going to go give it one pedal stroke. Wish the rain would have held off an hour or two, but the main thing I don't want to do is put any air back into the system, so we'll stroke it like so. Set the board in there like that. It's always easier if you have help, but sometimes I don't have help. You can see it's dripping out right now, so we'll tighten her down. I should make a note that, you know, I've got it in gear, I have the wheels blocked, it can't roll. When you start messing with brakes, you always want to make sure that the vehicle's not going to go anyplace on you. I know this one is, but it's always a good reminder. So, that's that. She's nice and snug. It's dripping off a little bit there, but that's okay. Just always, it kind of just fills the upper end of that tube if there's an air pocket in it. And so it's one more bubble that doesn't have to make it all the way to the bottom when you flush the system out. You can release it. So let's see if the pedal works. Not very solid. I think there's a leak somewhere downstream. And we pushed some fluid downstream. Not too bad. I'll cap it up. This plug on the end looks like it's dripping too. I guess that's a lesson that you should always check all the fittings. Yep, that one's open. Well, that doesn't help. No wonder I didn't have a solid pedal. Let's try this again. Let's make sure that one's tight. I guess that's for if you had two connections, but let's just make sure that the bleeders. Oh, come on. I don't know what size that one is. Come on. Okay, so I topped that up, and with this one now being tight, that one should be tight. I'll still need to double check it, but it's not leaking so far. I'm going to crack this one, and I'm going to do that little trick again, and just try to make sure that there isn't any air caught in there. I'm going to give it a push. Try loosening up the bleeder since I've got one. I bet you that doggone thing's metric. It's halfway between a quarter and a 5/16. All this new stuff is made in China, so. And I don't want to make a mess out here, so this is going to be a little tricky, but let me break the bleeder loose. I'm going to put a piece of paper towel over the top so that it doesn't just spray all over the place. Let's see if I can tuck it under the bale wire first, and then down. I just want to direct the stuff down into the pan. Well, that certainly saturated the towel. Let's cinch that one back down. That actually should be a good bleed, actually. Come on. Okay. That looks pretty solid. Let that stay there and catch drips for right now. Let's go see if the brake pedal's a little better this time. Well, actually, I'm actually getting it's not perfectly firm, but I'm getting something. About half a stroke there. All right. That's kind of firm, so, I mean, I don't know, we may have stuck wheel cylinders too, but hey, that's the first round. Cool. Now I'll go top that up for any fluid we lost. I'm kind of wondering is if the master cylinder corroded and the seals were leaking and that the master cylinder just leaked out the back and ran down the firewall front of the dash. I don't know, but hey, that's a whole lot better. I'm 100% sure that all the wheel brakes need service, but we can do things one step at a time. I just want to give you a little extra information on these old brake systems because they're different than modern ones. This picture isn't perfectly matched to the Chevy because the reservoir is different, but this is the basic. I'll call it cars of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s had similar systems. But what happened around, I think it was about 1967, they went from, this is a single master cylinder. In other words, there's one piston, there's one port, goes out to the wheels, and this is only one wheel, but if you've got a standard four-wheel drum brake system, you'll just have four of these. In the late 60s, the federal safety standards came in and said you needed to have dual master cylinders with two pistons, so that if you had a failure in one of these hydraulic portions, you didn't lose all the brakes on the car. When you run this one, if this master cylinder fails and you get a leak, there's only one piston operating all the brakes, and you lose all your hydraulic brakes. You'd still have your parking brake, emergency brake, mechanical system, but this was judged too much of a risk, and the federal safety regulations came in and said you needed to have two sections. Now, the nice thing about these old systems with four-wheel drum brakes is you really didn't need a proportioning valve. The proportioning was basically done by sizing all four brakes, and because they were all drum brakes of the same type, the same rough design, and then you would size the wheel cylinder to get the braking effect that you need. So, front wheel brakes would typically have a bigger wheel cylinder diameter than the rear wheel brakes would, and so they could apply more force. And that was how we balanced systems back in the olden days. One other thing, as I was going through this video, I was worried about pulling air back in, and come to think of it, I don't know what's inside that master cylinder because I didn't take it apart, but you'll note on here a reference to a check valve assembly down in the end, and that cylinder may very well have one of those. Typically there are check valves, or if I go down here to look at this one, it's a Bendix, there's a check valve in the fitting where the tube attaches. And you could also call them residual pressure valves. What you wanted to be able to do was keep a little bit of pressure, just a couple psi. You wanted to be able to hold a little bit of pressure in those wheel cylinders because these are cup-shaped rubber rubber seals, and you wanted just a little bit of pressure, and you've got springs holding things back, so you wanted just a little bit of pressure in there to keep those seals expanded and keep the system filled so that you had good response when you pushed on the master cylinder with the brake pedal connects here. And so there are check valves in these that are something you need to know and watch out for. While I'm in here today, I'm not going to run it right now, but when I did run it, see, the choke isn't closing all the way, and the thermostat might be bad. That was my first assumption, but in preparation for the next time I run it, as long as I got things opened up here, I'm going to crank this. There's a rich lean mark here, and normally it ought to be lined up with this mark on top. And I don't know the history of this car. There may be a good reason why it's turned that far, because maybe it does need a new thermostat. I'm trying to use this new little camera I got. And let me lay it down here and see if that will help. But what you would like is to turn this until the choke just closes. And back this off a little further so it's easier. So, let's see, and then that little guy at the bottom got me. So you hold the throttle open a little, and then turn this, and see now, see, the choke is just open a little ways. And I'm going to try and just turn it, yeah, like that, until the choke just closes. Because without the choke closed, when it's cold out, it won't start. And then what I'll have to watch for is the next time I have it fired up, is see if the choke opens all the way. If it doesn't, then I was looking for a choke thermostat, and these thermostats are discontinued. They're no longer available. And the replacement is to take this whole thing out and take out the heat tube and wire it up and make and put in an electrically heated choke as its replacement. And there's a number of places out there where you can get those. But I was kind of disappointed to see that the original part was no longer available. So, okay. Yeah, that's pretty good for right now. Before this car gets back on the road, it'll take more, it's going to take more tinkering and so forth. So the brake thing is one more thing done. I got this adjusted for next time. I don't know when I'm going to have it running next, but I don't have anything to do on there for right now. And just checking the brake things. I really had to cinch that down hard because it didn't really want to seal even the second time, but I think I got it now. And anyway, another job done. Now, regarding carburetors, I'm sorry that my video didn't show as much as I would have liked, so I found some pictures. Here's the old Rochester 2-barrel carburetor, similar to what's on the car, actually. And see, this one has a heat inlet in the center, and you can see this says rich lean. So you're doing is taking those 3 screws and backing them off so that you can rotate this cover one way or the other. That was what I was doing. And I had to loosen the heat inlet. The later designs took the heat inlet off this cover and put it in the casting on the body of the carburetor. Now, one other thing to note on these carburetors is there's a piston and a linkage inside this housing that has a vacuum connection, so that when your engine starts, the vacuum pulls that little piston. And, there's the vacuum port and the piston and the mechanism, and then it pops the choke valve open a little bit when the engine fires and gets vacuum. And all of these covers have this, wrapped up thermostat coil in it. And my concern with this one was that what happens with these thermostatic coils over time is that they're a bimetal, and many times as they age, they lose their sensitivity and they don't move as much. And so then the choke won't close all the way, or it may not open all the way. And what they really want you to do is line up the marks, and the specification will usually say there's a mark on the cover and there's a mark on the housing, and line it up or set it 1 rich or 2 rich or 1 lean. But again, as the thermostats age, sometimes those aren't what you would like. And so what I was trying to do is rotate that choke coil and the shaft, and then the valve would be there, until the choke plate just closes on the back of the housing up here, just lightly. And then when the engine gets warm, the question will be, does it come all the way vertical and open up fully when it's hot? If it doesn't, then that one would need to be replaced. But for now, I want to make sure the engine starts, so I'm just rolling that till it lightly touches the housing at the back and it's fully closed, along with the throttle cracked open. Because if the throttle isn't cracked open, the fast idle cam mechanism down here, you got a choke rod and a fast idle cam, and that will keep the plate from closing properly. And going back to this picture for a minute, this is one with a separate choke, where the choke coil is off the carburetor, and it's got an external linkage instead of internal linkage. But you can see right here the choke, what they call the choke valve, the plate, is, I was trying to rotate it until that plate was just closed like that. And because otherwise it'll be very, very hard to get that engine to start. And when I was testing it the last time, I was having trouble with that. And so I gave it a shot of starting fluid to help it along, because I knew it wasn't rich enough. So hey everybody, if you've made it through this video this far, this is just, I'm going to apologize a little bit for the quality of the video. Things were a little jerky and jumpy, and things didn't work quite as well as I'd like. But I was experimenting. My wife got me this nice little, it's a 4K sports camera. And as you can see, it's pretty small. And right now it's got a bracket with a clip on the back. I can clip it to a shirt. I can clip it to my hat. I can do lots of different things with it. It comes with a couple other brackets, like if I wanted to put it on my bicycle or something and do mountain biking. It's meant for a lot of different things. But the nice thing is that it's very, very compact, and a lot of times when I'm working on cars or other projects, getting underneath there with a full-size video camera and getting video in tight places is pretty doggone difficult. So on this master cylinder job, I decided to give it a try, and let me just say I'm learning. There's some things I have to do. I can't watch what it's doing at the time. It'll Wi-Fi into my phone, so I could watch it that way. And maybe I'll have to try that next time. But it really works pretty nice, but as I said, sorry if it was a little jumpy. I'll learn as I go here. But hey, thanks for watching. That's all for now.